welcome to Fishing Tale Films, welcome to the Angler's Den, and welcome to a brand new series called Reeling Back the Years. And Reeling Back the Years, this is episode 1, which I've called Boating Lake Roach, is an idea that's come about from people that have been watching the channel. And just after Christmas time, I did a couple of videos from the Angler's Den, sort of going back and talking about some of the items in the den that I've got here. And a couple of people, or quite a few people, said that would make a really good series, and it brought back a lot of memories of their early fishing days as well. So I had to think about it, and I thought, yeah, let's give it a go. Let's make a little series. I mean, I go back an awful long way, and so I've got lots of fishing memories. And so this is what Reeling Back the Years is all about. It's going to be going back and sort of sharing some fishing stories that are sort of really like implanted in my memory, you know, because we all have some fantastic days fishing. We have some dreadful days fishing. It's the way it happens sometimes. But the good thing about it is that while you're out fishing, nothing really matters. It's and if you get a good day, then it always kinds of, I don't know, it just sort of sits there in the back of your mind. So this is what the series is all about. Hopefully you're going to enjoy it. And I'm going to go back to a session that I had around about the mid-1970s, and a long while ago. And I used to fish a venue, I think I've mentioned it before, fished what I consider to be one of my training grounds, where I learnt to fish, and that was at Wanstead Park. It was called the Boating Lake, also nicknamed the Perch Ponds because it had stacks of perch in there, and that'd be a story for another day on Reeling Back the Years. And it was December, probably a couple of weeks before Christmas, and in them days we had really cold winters and very hot summers. And on this particular occasion, I walked about four to 4.5 miles. I was living in Forest Gate at the time, and I walked right across the Wanstead Flats, cut off down Dover Road, which then led sort of towards another entrance to Wanstead Park, and I would sort of slip in through there. And I was a bit worried because it had been very, very cold, and I was worried that it was going to be iced over. So bait wise, I had a few maggots with me. I think I had a little bit of ground bait with me, and that was about it really. I travelled light because I was walking such a long way. So I'd have like me sort of I think a Milbro rod I was using at the time, one of my Abu reels, which would have been me 501, that one there. And that would have been loaded with sort of £3 line, maybe 2, because I did used to fish very, very light. The emphasis on was the lighter you fished, the more chances you've got of increasing your bite. So anyway, I walked up to the side entrance, looked over the railings, and I could see that a lot of all I could see was an iced up lake. So my heart sunk. I thought, blimey, I've walked all that way, and it looks like I'm going to be out of luck. So I climbed through, and I had a look up down towards what was called the board sections of the lake, and there was a bit like it was like a semicircular shape of dark water, and I'm looking down thinking, that looks like it's ice free. So with my hopes raised, I walked up to that section, and there was probably about 2 swims available to fish, and it went out to about probably 2 or 3 rod lengths out, and then it was like this sort of. I think what had been happening was that there had been a wind, and it was blowing into that corner, and it managed to keep that sort of section of the lake ice free, because the rest of the lake was completely iced up. So I was really lucky, and so there was an old oak tree that I used to fish next to, and that's where I plonked all my gear, set everything up, got me rod and reel set up. And in them days I used to fish 1.5 foot to 2 foot over depth. I used to really pin the float, the bait right down, and on that particular day I was using a quill float. It was actually this quill float there, that one there, red tip. I think it was quite a heavy float. It probably took about, I don't know, 4 or 5 BB, something like that, and I would have it sort of shot down to about there. I don't know if you can see that properly, and in there I used to take the eyes out of the quill, and I used to use you know, like in the biros you'd get the refills, you'd get like the little tube. I used to cut that in pieces and then slip the line through that, and then that would then slot inside, almost like the waggler adapters that you get now, probably where it come from. And I used to fish that way, and so I was casting out onto the ice and then just bringing it back slowly, and then I'll just watch the float slowly settle into position. I mean, this float has got to be, what, 50 years old? A good 45, maybe 50 years old, but it was exactly that float. I've got some floats there that have been there donkey's years, really old floats. Lots of memories in that float box, and I'll have to go through it one day. Maybe that could be another episode, going through my old quill box. But anyway, so I wasn't expecting an awful lot, to be honest. I mean, it was a well stocked. I think it was run by Redbridge Council. I think it come under their sort of banner as such, and obviously I didn't see another angler all day, and if there wasn't. Well, the options were very, very limited. So I sat there next to this oak tree, set all up, and when I looked down, I found that someone had left a whole pint, a bag. It was in a bag of caster. So I picked it up, and up until then I hadn't really fished with casters. I know my dad, you always used to tell me that it's a fantastic roach bait. You know, the roach love casters, and he caught lots of roach himself using casters, and I used to just stick with maggots, you know. So I picked up this bag of casters, and they look really fresh as well. So someone had obviously left it there for someone else to use, or they'd forgotten it was there. One out of two, they'd forgotten them. But I like to think that they left it there for another angler to use, and in that, on that particular day, that was me. So I thought, well, I'll try cast. I'd had a couple of tiny little bites on the maggot, and I reckon I'd been there about two hours, not a touch, nothing at all, and I was pinging out little and often, and I was fishing in about 6-7 foot of water, like I say, fishing a good 1.5 foot over depth, and using a size 18 hook, one of the old Pedgley Davis hooks. So I reeled in, put on a couple of caster. I use sort of like a fairly light colour, sort of that light reddy sort of colour that say pick them out, put them on, cast out onto the ice, just lifted it back over, let it drop down. And I just sat there, and I was, you know, pouring myself out a little coffee and made a flask up and everything. Thoroughly enjoying myself. It was very, very cold, I must admit. In them days you never used to have like the sort of the thermal socks that you can get now, and I had welly boots on, and so my toes were feeling a little bit cold, and I was staring away at me float, and I don't know, I thought it was my imagination, but I just see it like dip, and I thought, wow, was that a bite? You know, it'd been so long of nothing happening, and then all of a sudden it like lifted, and then it started to travel across the water, like sort of right to left. And I could feel my heart banging. I'm thinking, blimey, I've actually got a bite here. And then it slid very, very slowly. I can still see it now in my mind, because I always think of this day. And it slid away really slowly. And I've lifted up into it. The rod's bent over, and that thump, 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 thump. And then it sort of kited off to the left. And I'm thinking, wow, I've got a fish on. You know, I wasn't expecting anything, and it was so cold. And played it for a little while, then netted it, and it was a fantastic looking roach. It was probably about 8 ounces, 9-10 ounces. They had some real quality roach in the Boating Lake, they really did. And so I netted it, unhooked it, looked at it, plopped it in my keep net, because I was using the keep net then. And I thought, wow, I've caught one. Cast out. 20 minutes later, the same thing happened again. Almost an identical bite. Lifted and then just travelled along. It was just a fantastic sight to see. And I'd really let the float slide away, and then I'd strike again, lift up into the strike. And this time it was a better fish, and just plodding away. I'm just thinking, oh, this is absolutely fantastic. I come here not expecting, well, I wasn't expecting to see if I could fish, let alone catch anything. And there I am. I've got another nice roach on, netted that slightly bigger, and it had the roach. I think probably because it was cold, and that they had that like sometimes on them when they start maturing a bit, they get that sort of lovely sort of silvery blue glint to down their flanks, and they were in perfect condition. Slipped that in the net, and I thought, wow, that was quality looking fish. That was probably about 12 ounces. It was pretty big, you know, quite a big roach in them days, I must admit. And that set the pattern for the next sort of 2.5 hours. And the bites were not sort of fast developing. They were very, very slow. Like I say, the water temperature must have been really, really cold, and I was just catching these wonderful roach, and the biggest I had was just over the pound mark, which at the time was my biggest ever roach by a long chalk. It really was. And I had a baker's dozen of these quality roach. Now, I did take some photos, probably on that Kodak 32 camera there, and I was been trying to find, obviously it wasn't a selfie, so I remember putting them down, laying them out on me landing net pan on top of me keep net as a bit of cushion, and I sort of laid the fish out, and I took some photos, and I've got that photo somewhere. I was hoping that I could include it in this video on this first episode, but it was just the buzz I got out of it. I'd walked 4.5 miles. Obviously I had a 4.5 mile walk back, but I floated back. I'd had such a fantastic day, it just felt like I floated all the way back home. Couldn't wait to get home and tell me dad and me mum what a fantastic day's fishing I've just had, catching these quality roach out of the Boating Lake at Wanstead, and it was down to the casters. So from then on, I started using casters more when I was targeting the roach, and it was just one of them days that you never forget, or that I will never forget anyway. Which is why I'm telling the story now. And I didn't see a soul all day. I think I see one person walking his dog went through, and I don't think he knew I was there because he probably wasn't expecting to see anyone. And that was it. I didn't see anyone else. It was almost like I was fishing away in my own little world, and just a brilliant day. I probably packed up sort of round about 3ish. It was getting sort of starting to get dark then, and the temperature was dropping even more, and the bites had kind of tailed off then. I think I missed probably about 3 bites in total. So I had about 15 bites, caught 13, a baker's dozen as I like to call it, and one of the most incredible days fishing. And I think it was rewarding because I'd took the effort to put a few bits of tackle together, and I would imagine it would be, I think it was on a Saturday, because obviously I would have been at school during the week, so it would have been a Saturday that I went over there to Wanstead, to the Boating Lake, a place that I knew really well, and lucky enough that, you know, I had a couple of swims that I could fish. The oak tree was one of my favourites anyway. Had some good days out of it, and that was probably one of the highlights, especially during the winter, because it was, like I say, it was all the effort had been worthwhile, and like I say, a day I'll never forget, fishing with that float there, that quill float, and unbelievable bites, and what a great day. So Boating Lake Roach, it was, looking back at the Boating Lake, it had an awful lot of good roach in there, and I know during one of the summers there, I don't know if it was that same year, but it was around that time when I first became aware of the swim feeder. Now nowadays it's called maggot feeder, ground bait feeder, cage feeder, method feeder, but in them days when it first came out, it was just known as a swim feeder, and that was it. That was it, swim feeder, nothing else. That was it. And I remember watching. I was fishing on the board section on the Boating Lake, and to me right there was a couple of anglers had turned up, and they were wading out down the side because it was a little bit shallower there, and they were obviously on like sort of ledger rods, and they were casting out. I could hear this splosh, and I'm thinking, what the hell are they using? And they were striking on a regular basis, and they were catching quality roach. They really were, absolutely unbelievable fish. And I remember having a little walk round there and just stood there and watched them to see what they were up to and what they were using. And I had a little quick chat with them, and they said, yeah, we're just trying to ease these like swim feeders out, and which was like a maggot feeder really. And that was my first introduction to how good the swim feeders could be. So yeah, it was a real training ground, the Boating Lake, and I've got some other stories of some fantastic times on that lake. Sadly, I don't even think they fish there anymore. I know the board section, they concreted it, and which completely ruined it all. Just they took a couple of trees out as well, and they wrecked it. They just concreted it along, and it was never the same again. But I had many good years out of it. I remember fishing it in the drought that year. I think it was 76, and at the start of this 6 weeks holiday, where I was casting to, because I used to fish down the side bank, I'd sort of fish about three or four rod lengths out, because it was quite shallow, and by the end of the 6 weeks holiday, where I was originally casting to was where I ended up sitting. It had really gone, sort of dried right up, and the lake, in them days, we had like really hot summers, and I'd look back and think, well, I was where I'm sitting there was where I was actually catching the fish, and yeah, lots of memories of that fantastic place. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this little trip down memory lane, reeling back the years. There's plenty of them to come, and hopefully you've enjoyed the first episode. If you have, please give it a thumbs up, and if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. And if you've got any comments, like you might have even fished a boating lake yourself, and fishing with casters and stuff like that, just drop me a line, and because it's always great to hear from people as well. We're all anglers, we're all like-minded anglers out there. We all enjoy this wonderful sport, pastime, leisure activity, whatever you want to call it. And so yeah, the next episode again will be featuring the same lake, the Boating Lake, but this time it involves an absolutely brilliant day where I had another baker's dozen. And now the species completely different to the roach, but it was tench, and I'll save that story for next time. But anyway, thanks for watching Fishing Tail Films, Reeling Back the Years, episode 1, and I'll see you again soon, and take care.